Ruiz. I appreciate it. And yeah, I wanted to just thank everybody for tuning in, whether you're watching live or watching sometime in the future. I certainly hope you'll get something out of this discussion about leadership lies, why we believe them, and the truths that we should believe instead. And there are a lot of lies that I could talk about, but I've narrowed down to just five that I see the most frequently, and we'll go ahead and just jump right in with that first lie, which is that I can't afford company culture. I'll go ahead and minimize that. The lie that I can't afford company culture. And I know that a lot of the Shifting the Paradigm conference attendees and people that are going to be in this Facebook group are small business owners. And as a small business owner, it's really easy to get bought into this lie that we can't afford company culture. And the reason for that is that if we go online and look at company culture, what we're going to see is a lot of talk about big fancy office spaces and Facebook and Google with their nap pods. Of course, needing to have a ping pong table in the office, and even some companies which have slides in their offices, and you're a small business owner looking at this and thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to afford an office this big and have the ability to do all these things to have a great culture? And you know as a business owner, this can feel really overwhelming, but the truth is that company culture is free and it's built every single day. Ben Horowitz, in his book, What You Do Is Who You Are, this is what he says about company culture. Your culture is how your company makes decisions when you're not there, the set of assumptions your employees use to resolve problems, how they behave when no one is looking. And then he says, if you don't methodically set your culture, then 2/3 of it will end up being accidental and the rest will be a mistake. So as leaders, it's important that we are intentionally building our company culture. And if we don't, it's going to be built for us. And you may remember last year, I talked through in my presentation at the Shifting the Paradigm conference, the 5 keys to an unstoppable culture, which were curiosity, failure, ownership, candor, and connection. Curiosity, are we giving our people freedom to think of new ways to do things and innovate and try new things? Failure, is our company a place where it's safe to fail, where when we try that new idea that we had, we can completely fall on our face and know it's okay because we'll learn from it and be better for it? Ownership, is our company a place where people are free to take ownership of their mistakes rather than pointing the finger and blaming other people, and also take ownership of hard problems? Candor, are we having open and honest feedback about how we're performing and able to not only give that feedback but receive it in a candid way? And lastly, connection. Are we not only connected to one another in an organization, which is as important as ever as we walk through a pandemic, but also are we connecting the work we do to the greater society at large? And you can look at those 5 things and see it doesn't cost anything to help your people be curious or to have candid conversations or be open to failure. Those are all things that are completely free. And if, as leaders, we're not building our culture, it's going to be built for us. Whether you have a company that is 2 people or you lead a team of 100 people, you have a culture right now, and you either build it yourself or it's built for you. So that's our first lie, that I can't afford company culture. And the truth is that company culture is free and it's built every single day. All right, next lie. The lie that as the leader, I need to have all the answers. And this shows up in 2 ways. The first way is that we hamstring our people by thinking that we need to be involved in every decision, that they don't have ownership and autonomy to make their own decisions. And when that happens, we as the leader don't have any time to think about big picture items because we have to be pulled into every decision our people make and always be answering questions for them. The second way that this plays out is as a leader, I need to be the only one thinking about big picture items. I need to come up with every new idea and I need to solve every problem. And that obviously doesn't play out very well as a leader. You end up completely swamped and can't actually get anything done. The truth is that your people are your greatest asset, and you must trust them to make decisions and also involve them when solving problems. And one of my favorite stories of this, of a leader who was humble enough to admit he didn't have all the answers and ask his people for help, has to do with this guy, Richard Montañez. And Richard was a janitor at a Frito-Lay plant making $4 an hour back in the 1980s. And in the 80s, Frito-Lay had fallen on some hard times. And Roger Enrico, who was the CEO at the time, he was trying to figure out how are we going to get Frito-Lay out of this hole that we're in. So he sent a video message to all the employees of Frito-Lay all across the country, encouraging them to think like owners, to think about how they would improve the business. And Richard Montañez, he took that message to heart and reached out to a sales representative for Frito-Lay and ended up going with him to a Mexican grocery store. And Richard's watching this salesperson stock a bunch of really bland Cheetos and bland Frito chips on a rack right next to a bunch of Mexican spices. And Richard has the realization that Frito-Lay does not make anything that's spicy or hot. So Richard thinks about this, and he, one night, a few days later, he scoops up a handful of Cheetos, which don't have any cheese on them yet, and he takes those home with him and puts his own proprietary blend of Mexican spices onto these Cheetos. Starts passing these out to his friends, and his friends love them. They're met with huge enthusiasm, and he can't stop making these for his friends. So like any janitor would do, of course, any of us would just call up the CEO's office, which is what Richard did. He calls up the CEO's office. Of course, the receptionist answers. She says, "This is Mr. Enrico's office." And Richard says, "Yes, I need to speak with Mr. Enrico, please." And the receptionist says, "Okay, sounds great. Are you a VP?" And he says, "No, I work in a plant." And she says, "Oh, okay, great. So you're a plant manager." He says, "Well, no, not quite. I'm actually a janitor." Nonetheless, the receptionist goes ahead and puts him through, and Richard finds himself on the phone with Roger Enrico, the CEO of Frito-Lay. And he's telling him about this great idea he has for these Cheetos that he's made. Roger Enrico says, "Hey, that's a great idea." And just a couple weeks later, Richard is in front of the Frito-Lay board giving a full-blown pitch to the board of directors for his new product. And, Richard has no formal business training and is totally new to this. And the story goes that at one point during this meeting, a board member asked Richard, "How much market share do you think we're looking at here?" And Richard stretches his arms out as wide as he can. He says, "This much market share." That was Richard's last day as a janitor for Frito-Lay, and it was the first day of what we now know as Flamin' Hot Cheetos. And I'm sure I'm not the only one in this group that has been the beneficiary of Richard's idea, because I love Flamin' Hot Cheetos. But Frito-Lay was also a beneficiary here because Flamin' Hot Cheetos are now worth over $300 million as a brand for Frito-Lay. And the only reason we all get to enjoy these great chips is because Roger Enrico, as the CEO and as the leader, had the humility to say, "You know what, I don't have all the answers here," and knew that it was okay that he didn't have all the answers, and asked his people for help in how to improve his business. And that's how we end up with Flamin' Hot Cheetos. So as a leader, be okay to not have all the answers and know that your people are your greatest asset. Next lie, I need to be on all the time. And this one is one that we all have seen, probably have bought into a little bit, and I think it might be the most dangerous of the 5 lies that we're going to look at today. And we live in a workaholic culture. We brag about our 80-hour work weeks and our quick lunch breaks in between work binges. Our sleepless nights are a a badge of honor as we work into all hours of the night. And we've all seen this does not end well. And the reason that we buy into this is because we inflate our egos to think that things will fall apart if we take a break. And in reality, the truth is that if you do not take time away, you will lose everything that truly matters and your business will go in the process. This is Dov Charney. He was the CEO of American Apparel, which at one point was a international brand in 20 countries, 250 stores, more than $1 billion in revenue. And when Dov started American Apparel, he made it his mission that he was going to be available 24/7 to anybody in the company. And at first, this felt really, really good to him. He had to be involved in every decision that was made at American Apparel, and this felt great for his ego. He also, just like we just talked about, was the person that had to have all the answers. But as American Apparel grows to 250 stores, 20 countries, this starts to become unsustainable. In 2014, Dove goes from getting just a few hours of sleep each night to getting 0 hours of sleep each night. And in an effort to combat this, what he does is builds, you could hardly call it an apartment, but he builds a shower and puts a cot into an office in one of their manufacturing plants. And that way he can hopefully go grab a couple hours of sleep during the day and then get back at it. Ultimately, Dove has basically a breakdown on the factory floor one day where he is unshaven, bleary-eyed, and having this just angry outburst and saying one thing and then contradicting himself just a few seconds later, and his people are completely confused. And if you don't know the rest of the story for American Apparel, what ends up happening is American Apparel goes through 2 bankruptcies. What was once a $1 billion company gets purchased at the bargain price of $88 million, and more than 10,000 people lose their jobs. And there were plenty of problems with American Apparel, but one of the biggest was that the leader at the top was not taking the time to take care of himself. He tried to be on 24/7, and ultimately the entire thing fell apart. But Dove isn't unique even in the scope of business leaders in America. Arianna Huffington, the founder of the Huffington Post, she recounts a story of her passing out from exhaustion in her bathroom, waking up after splitting her head open in a pool of blood. But now she looks back on that day as this monumental day in her life where she realized that she couldn't be on all the time and that she needed to take care of herself in order for her business to be successful. As leaders, we're human just like anybody else, and it is critical that we get enough sleep, that we take time off, that we take care of our health, that we're building meaningful relationships with family and friends outside of work. Those are the things that really matter in the long run. And if we do those, not only will we be better leaders, but the people we lead will be better served and our companies will be more successful. All right, next one. The lie that I can't let my people see me fail. And again, this a lot of times comes back to ego, that we're the big bad leader and we've got to be perfect. If we fail, our people might, second guess us or question our ability to lead them effectively. But the reality is much different. Our people probably, they're well aware of our failures and shortcomings, probably are more aware of some of our shortcomings than even we are. So it's a complete illusion for us to think that our people aren't going to see us fail. And the worst thing we can do is pretend to know things that we don't know. Our people will see us as ungenuine and untrustworthy. Even worse, we'll be sending a message to them that it's not safe to fail, and they'll think that they can't fail either, which goes back to one of the pillars of building a great culture. The truth is that the more often our people see us fail, the more they'll respect us and the more comfortable they'll be with their own failure. Bob Iger was the longtime CEO of the Walt Disney Company. In his book, The Ride of a Lifetime, he tells just a really great story about a time that he failed and had to own that in front of his team. And the story revolves around this TV series, Cop Rock, which I had never heard of, and I think a lot of people have not ever heard of. And Bob Iger gave the green light for this show, and the premise of Cop Rock is basically it is a police drama, but it's also a musical. Think Law and Order and Glee into one, the Broadway version of Cops. And if you're like me, you're probably sitting there wondering, what in the world does that TV show look like? How does that play out? Here's a quick little clip that I grabbed for you guys. All right. It's always a risk to put a video into a presentation. I hope you guys could hear that audio. Some of you may have been jamming out a little bit. If you really were enjoying that, just go to YouTube, type in Cop Rock, and it'll pull up all kinds of videos like that. But you can probably imagine how that TV show went. It was canceled after just 11 episodes, and to this day is recounted as one of the worst TV shows in television history. Even Bob Iger himself, who gave the green light for the TV show, he calls it an embarrassment, but also he's made it a point to never distance himself from the reality that he greenlit that TV show. He tells the story of getting up in front of the cast and crew of that show and saying, listen, we took a big risk and we failed, but I'd rather be somebody that is taking risks and failing sometimes than someone that doesn't take risks at all. And then Bob Iger says this: you earn as much respect and goodwill by standing by someone in the wake of a failure as you do by giving them credit for a success. And we can take that same quote and personalize that and say, you earn as much respect and goodwill by standing by your failures as you do by taking credit for your successes. So as the leader, be okay with being human. Be humble and be comfortable failing in front of your people, because that will make you real to them and it'll make your entire organization better. All right, the last lie. I need a title to be a leader. And you may have been watching this presentation and thinking, wait a minute, I don't own a business and I'm not a manager. I don't manage anybody at work. Like, I'm not really a leader. This stuff isn't for me. And I see that most often with young people who are early in their career and they're asking, how do I get into management so I can be a leader? But the reality here and the truth is really, really simple. Leaders lead, plain and simple. Whether their title says they're a leader or not, leaders will always be found leading. And this is where it's a good place to differentiate between management and leadership. Management is controlling things or people. Leadership is directing people toward a common goal. And sometimes leadership does require some management, but not always. We can look at this infographic and see that leaders strive towards goals. They're people focused. They earn respect and celebrate other people's success. They empower people and care about results and take ownership. And you can look at that list of 7 things and see whether you're flipping burgers at McDonald's or whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you have complete ability to set goals and strive towards them, to earn people's respect and celebrate their success, to take ownership. Those are things that anybody can do regardless of their title. and anybody can be a leader. So leaders lead, plain and simple. And lots of people talk about it, but few people are actually doing it. But the world is filled with problems that need solved, and whether that's at home, at work, at church, you name it, there's plenty of opportunities to step up, take ownership, and lead. All we have to do is do it. So those are the 5 leadership lies. Let's do a quick review here. The first lie: I can't afford company culture. And the truth is that company culture is free and it's built every single day. The second lie: that I need to have all the answers as the leader. And the truth is that your people are your greatest asset. You need to trust them to make decisions and involve them when solving problems. The lie: that as leaders, we need to be on all the time. When the truth is that if you do not take time away, you will lose everything that truly matters and your business will go in the process. Lie: that I can't let my people see me fail. And the truth that the more often your people see you fail, the more they will respect you and the more comfortable they'll be with their own failure. And lastly, the lie: that I need a title to be a leader. And the truth that leaders lead. So those are the 5 leadership lies. I hope you took something away from this. Go ahead and take down my email or my LinkedIn profile. I would love to connect with anybody that watches this and continue that conversation. One note: the O in my last name in my LinkedIn profile is a 0, so make sure you get that right.